About 9 p.m. last night, we got 911 calls of a shooting that had just occurred in the area of Gear and Wayside, and we actually had an officer in the area that heard the gunshots and was already responding to the area. As that officer arrived, he got flagged down by somebody that pointed out a suspect vehicle that was responsible for the shooting. He immediately turned around after that vehicle, and a pursuit began that lasted over 2 miles. That car eventually lost control and crashed into a fence of a house. The driver was able to flee the car and began jumping fences where we set up a perimeter. At the same time, we had officers responding over to Gear and Wayside to the O'Reillys in the 1100 block of Gear Road, where they found a 22-year-old female with gunshot wounds laying in the parking lot.
Okay. And then I know this is all like in the release.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about her condition when officers found her, what they tried to do?
So when officers got on scene with her, there were community members around that were attempting CPR. The officer immediately took over CPR from them, as he is properly trained, and did CPR until AMR arrived. AMR took over CPR and then transferred her to Emmanuel Medical Center, where they continued life-saving acts.
Mm-hmm. And the ultimate result?
Despite all efforts, she did succumb to her injuries and was pronounced dead at Emmanuel Medical Center.
You'll have to forgive me. I've been speaking with the sister, so I know some additional details that maybe you're not able to release at this time, but can you talk at all about what we know to be the relationship between the victim and the suspect?
What we originally were told was that there was a dating relationship. We have come to find out that there may not have been a dating relationship, and it was simply a work relationship. Friends at work, and nothing more than that.
But there were instances of things seem to ramp up.
In the fall of 2021, most of these events occurred in Livingston and for certain in Merced County. Nothing occurred in Turlock. The incidents began happening where they were being reported to Livingston PD. All the incidents began happening in Livingston and were reported in Livingston PD. They took many reports, which eventually led to a stalking charge and our suspect being arrested for stalking, and an emergency protective order being issued protecting our victim from him.
And then that expired, but
yes,
that would be through Livingston Police.
That would be through Merced County.
Sorry, Merced County.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. What is the current status now of the suspect?
He is booked into Stanislaus County Jail. He is being held without bail on the charge of murder in the first degree, 2 counts of attempted murder. Let me start that over.
Sure. Yeah, what's the current status of the suspect?
He's currently being held without bail on the charge of homicide in the first degree, 2 counts of attempt homicide, and evading a police officer, which is also a felony.
One other question. Can you talk about the search efforts after he crashed his vehicle, after the pursuit and then he crashed his vehicle?
When he fled on foot, officers immediately began setting up a perimeter in the area. It's an entirely residential area. We called for air support, and Modesto Police Department brought down their drone unit that has infrared cameras on it. They flew the area. It was a large search area, and unfortunately, cold weather, the batteries began to die. Just about the time we were beginning to break down the perimeter, a citizen who had received the reverse 911 call from our dispatch called in and said they saw somebody running through their yard. Officers moved to that area. One of our officers was getting out of his vehicle and spotted the suspect hiding in a bush and took him into custody without incident.
So just very fortunate that you had ordinary citizens just on the lookout.
Absolutely. the coordination between the police department and the community is absolutely crucial in a case like this. While we warned everyone to lock their doors and stay inside, we also asked them to be alert and call 911 if they saw anything, and that's what this person did, and they took a dangerous person off the street.
I understand, I did speak with someone who said there was maybe something new in the last couple of hours. There was a search conducted.
Yes.
Can you talk at all about that?
Our officers were issued a search warrant from a judge in Stanislaus County to search the suspect's house in Livingston. They went and recovered some electronics, and there's some digital evidence that is also furthering our case. We also located another vehicle that belongs to him. Both of the vehicles involved were towed, and they're currently being stored inside in our vehicle inspection bay. And a search warrant will be sought for those tomorrow, and they'll be searched tomorrow for more evidence.
Not everything right.
Yes, another step that could have been taken was seeking a permanent restraining order. The emergency protective orders are only good for a few days, and they're only meant to give a person time to get into court. There's many organizations in our county and in other counties that can help people go through the restraining order process, and then it's a matter of contacting police every single time and have all of those violations documented. And I know it can be tedious, and I know it can seem like nothing's happening, but that's what it takes to build one of these cases in this state.
Are you able to say whether or not that happened here, or because that was in Livingston or in Merced County?
We know that they were reporting everything to Livingston, and Livingston was doing an outstanding job of documenting everything and holding them as accountable as the law allowed.
And can you talk about what are the limits that for law enforcement, that's kind of one of the scary things, like what can be done to prevent something like this?
Well, when you get a restraining order, and it's a distance restraining order, 100 yards is a long way in a city, in a residential area. So if the person's close enough to see you or be around you within that 100 yards, it's a violation. And those are arrestable offenses. But if you don't have that permanent restraining order and it's a public street, that person can be there.
Yeah, so without that permanent restraining order, he wasn't necessarily breaking a law by walking down the street nearby.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything I haven't asked that you haven't touched upon?
I would like to point out, from the time this call came in, our detectives responded within probably 20 minutes of the call coming out, and they worked from 9 p.m. And I sent the last two home at about 5:30 p.m. today. They worked well over 20 hours straight, interviewing, gathering evidence, processing 2 different scenes, multiple vehicles, conducting a search warrant on a home in another county. Tireless efforts. The teamwork between patrol and investigations was crucial in this. An alert officer that spotted the car and then later spotted the suspect hiding, and then the cooperation between the community and the police department is what brought this to a successful conclusion, and can hopefully bring the family some peace, knowing that he is in custody, and that our hearts go out to Zoe's family. Let me start that again.
Yeah.
Our hearts go out to Zoe's family. It is heartbreaking, this case. She did nothing. She was sitting in a car, and her life was taken far too young. And these are the cases we wish we could have done something to prevent. And all we can do now is our absolute best to make sure that family sees justice.
And there's no doubt that you all will. I see it in your eyes, you know, that this case hit home.
It absolutely did. She was everything we found on her, everything that we learned about her. She was a wonderful young woman that was taken far too young from this world.
And that's why it was important for you all just to be there, to log all these hours and put all this effort into this case.
Right. We strive to put as much effort into every case as possible. My daughter's the same age as Zoe, so sometimes it hits a little closer to home.